I'm excited that you were able to join me because I know you have a very busy life. First, congrats, because
Thank
I
you.
know today is the first day that people can stream Mr. Scorsese.
Yeah, the first day globally. It's in like something like 100 and I don't know, 120 countries or just, I mean, bananas. Crazy.
And your latest project with Rebecca Miller, who you guys have been working together for quite a while now. When I first met you, I think was when Maggie's Plan was coming out or was about to, I think.
Yeah, that was 2015. We worked on I can't remember. The Arthur Miller doc came out after that. But so yeah, Maggie's Plan was the first one as a producer, but I had been her assistant going back to 2007, her on-set assistant on this film, The Private Lives of Pippa Lee. So we've known
Yeah.
each other for 18 years.
Oh,
Crazy.
wow.
Yeah,
I
she married
remember
my husband and I.
oh, really?
Yeah, she officiated our wedding.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was going back to the article I wrote for Out Magazine back in the day, and you were explaining that you like were going into some archive to find all this film footage so that you could use for the documentary that you guys were putting together about Arthur Miller, her dad.
Yeah, I had a day job at the time. I'd been a few people's assistants. I'd been Scott Rudin's assistant. I'd been Rebecca's assistant. I'd been assistant at ICM. And then I decided I want to start doing my own work. And the only way to really do that, unless you come from, inherited wealth, which I did not, was to get a day job. And so I did what I think most people thought was career suicide or something, because you work for fancy people and you sort of work your way up the ladder, and the logical next step would be, I don't know what, like you work for the head of a big studio or something like that. But I decided that I really wanted to do my own work. So I pivoted and I went back to waiting tables, which I'd done in
Hmm.
college. And I waited tables for 3 years. And then I was the ping pong party planner at that ping pong club Spin on 23rd and
Ben,
Park.
yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was the one that threw the corporate Christmas parties and the bar mitzvahs. And it allowed me to start doing my own work. And so I simultaneously started writing again, and I did a sketch comedy show that turned into a storefront performance on the Lower East Side that I was in, that turned into a web series that I did two
Hmm.
seasons of. And then I also started finding all this footage on Arthur Miller at a storage facility in Fort Lee, New Jersey, that had sort of gone missing. And then I digitized 200 hours on 8 different formats, and transcribed a 1,331-page document with a friend, and then paid an NYU student $1,000 to edit together a 5-minute sizzle reel, and then sold it to HBO. And that was kind of how it started. And I co-founded the Lower East Side Film Festival
Right.
with 3 friends as well, in the storefront that I had performed in prior. So yeah, my career has been this sort of like serpentine, would that be the right word? But it was definitely not the, like, you hear these people like, oh, and then I graduated college and then I got my first, I took this sort
Hmm.
of like weird winding track, which in hindsight was so additive and has complemented so much of what I do today. So I'm
Well,
grateful
and on
for it.
top of that, you were volunteering because isn't that how you got the idea for Saturday Church when you wrote the script?
Yeah, so my mother is an Episcopal priest, so I am the gay son of a female priest. And which now I realize is a very unique position to be in.
Hmm.
Most people most people don't have that. Uh but my mother's very progressive too, and she performs gay marriages and she marches on the gay pride parade. And so although I do not go to church, my relationship with Christianity was always more of a sort of an open one, because my mother was my mother and also my priest. But obviously, that is not historically or currently
Right.
the situation with Christianity many times in the LGBTQ plus community. And it's specifically back when I first started having a curiosity about this, and I think it is still ongoing. There was a big schism happening in the Episcopal Church between the more conservative parishes and the more liberal ones. And the more conservative ones did not want there being gay marriage, did not want women being priests. I just thought it was fascinating that within the same denomination, you have these two different churches. And then she's the one that told me about St. Luke in the Fields in the West Village, and how every Saturday night they had a program for, at-risk queer youth, many of whom went to the Christopher Street Pier. And so I would just went out of curiosity to sort of help volunteer. They provide food, social services, and a safe space for the kids. And I just wanted to go and help out, and was also sort of fascinated that there was a church that was like helping the kids that had been thrown out on the street by another church. Um, and that's sort of where the idea all came to be. It just, it was just sort of happenstance and curiosity.
Well, but I want to dig deeper into that because, lately many of us are told in the creative world, like, write what you know. And, the fact that you were telling a story about brown and black people, genderqueer, fluid, all this stuff, they weren't necessarily your story, right? Like, it was your community, perhaps, but not really. So how did you get the chutzpah to, like, tackle it originally and then to bring it to when you made it in a movie? And now we'll get to the musical as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, it all starts with curiosity, and then inspiration comes from
Hmm.
curiosity. So it's not like planned, and you can't sort of control where inspiration comes
Yeah.
from. And the Saturday church program, actually, the kids that went there were all different kinds of kids, all different genders, all different races. So it was not just sort of Black and Latino kids. It was, some kids, there were even like straight kids there were like straight white
Yeah.
kids that would go there that were homeless that wanted a meal. So it was the whole sort of broad spectrum, and hearing their stories, and their perseverance was what inspired me in the first place. And it was also a time in which, we were still living in that period of Hollywood where it was sort of like celebrities were playing parts that they were not in order and winning Oscars for it. I'm not going to, name names, whatever. It was a
Eddie
different time.
Redmayne
Ah!
and yeah.
Well, you name the names. So I was one of, I think, and I don't want. I'm sure someone will be like, "That's not true," blah blah blah. And there's, but
It was
I
before
was.
Poe. Let's put
It
it that
was
way.
2 years before Pose. Yes, India Moore had never acted before, and India speaks about how she was homeless at the time. MJ had been in Rent at New World
Hmm.
Stages, and I believe a short film, but MJ was not MJ. And so when it came to casting, I wanted to cast from within the community, and then also there's some kids that went to the Saturday church program who are in the movie as well.
Right.
And that, I mean, now everyone just takes it for granted, but that back then was like novel, like, oh my God, what? And in fact, when I was trying to make the movie, nobody was interested in making that movie.
Right.
And it was actually kind of ironic that when a spotlight was finally shown, and this community uh, was started to get the attention that had long needed, the same people that I had told about the movie, who were like, I don't get it, it's too small, and frankly, nobody cares, I'd see 2 years later, like, commending, and, like, it's like when you watch these award shows and every year they say, we gotta, we need more this, we need more that. And it's like, well, then do it. Like, you're the
Hmm.
people making all the decisions. And yet you go in these rooms, and I was being told, well, maybe if you can cast so and so as, and I was like, I'm not casting so and so to play one of these characters. Like, no. And so it was very tough to make the film. I was also a first time filmmaker, and director, and miraculously, and with a lot of hard work and incredible talent from the creative team, and our sort of insane level of talent in the cast who were all undiscovered, the film ended up premiering at Tribeca, and it became a New York Times Critics Pick.
Hmm.
And
Sia tweeted about it.
Sia tweeted about it, which, is like an annoying thing to say, I think, for people who might be watching, like, oh, really? But it's a it should be inspiring in the sense of the only reason that happened. And it's not because there's a secret story of, oh, we found out his cousin is actually Sia's, publicist or
Mm.
something. No relation, no outreach, nothing. But the only reason that happened is because, you know, me, the producing team, worked really hard to not listen to the naysayers in Hollywood and feel like we wanted to tell this story, like of it, which is a very human story and which comes out of this place of sort of like, what is Christianity? And so, yes, the opportunity of Sia is insane, and that's crazy that that happened. But it never would have happened if I had just given up and listened to everybody that was telling me it's not important, it's too small, who cares, all the rest of the things. So, if people are creative and listening, it should inspire you to just shut out the noise and keep trudging forward.
Well, it
And then
also
the
is a nice
musical.
story. It's
Sorry,
also a
go
nice
on.
story of when social media doesn't do a toxic thing. It actually helps boost and lift, right?
I didn't believe it was real. It was more plausible to me. And I had like 30 followers on Twitter. Like, it wasn't like I was whatever. It was more plausible to me that somebody had created a fake Sia account and decided to tweet about my movie to fuck with me than it was. I can swear on this thing, right? Yeah.
Of course.
Then it was actual Sia, but then the verified check mark proved otherwise, and then I found out that it was in fact true. And so, but then again, it's like, I think, the musical took 7 years. It was
Yeah.
not like overnight. And of course, once I knew Sia wanted to be a part, it was a massive boost and kind of wind in the sails. But then it was, you know, how do you put something like this together? And so,
Well, let's talk about that because, yeah, I mean, you obviously, as you said, you've been an actor, you've been a model, you've
oh
worked in
God, that's
in
like the thank you.
and you've worked in various creative
I
fields,
was a
but
dancer, I was a
yeah,
singer. I've
but you'd
come from
never
many
made a
backgrounds.
musical. You'd never written.
I'd never
Yeah.
written a stage
And
musical.
now you have this incredible team of people, Tony Award winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, James Ijames,
The best.
yeah, Whitney, and so tell me a little bit about that journey of adapting it, and then also having other collaborators, and how that helped and how that changed things.
Yeah, so Tim Levy and Cindy Tolan are the lead producers on it. And so I met Tim through this process after Sia became involved. And Cindy I had known, but not as through other means, because she also was a casting director and she'd cast Rebecca's films, and her and I had produced the Arthur Miller doc together. And so her and Tim had worked on Curious Incident, I believe, that she cast and Tim
Okay.
produced. And Tim also is a great producer and had produced Marianne Elliott's Angels in America. He did Company with Patti LuPone and Network with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
And Cindy had done Death of a Salesman in London, and that was on the West End. That came to Broadway. And she also produced oh my God, American Clock, uh, in the West End. And so, they were incredible with sort of starting to take it and like build out this incredible team. And I mean, this was, again, it took 7 years, but a musical is a massive, massive thing. And um, I think people, like, you can conceptualize it. I certainly did, but like now having gone through the process, it's like, everybody says it's like these juggernauts, but it's just like the fine tuning and getting the formula right and the chemistry to all work from all the different departments, from the writing and the book to the music to the choreography to the acting to the lighting to everything. And it's all live and it's all happening at once. Like, you don't have the luxury of an edit room and being like, oh, that scene
Hmm.
didn't work, so let's just do this. And like, it's the most thrilling experience, but you need the best of the best. And what was really miraculous is that, to your point, everyone's like, you have like the Avengers of musical theater, but it's literally the best of the best. And I think that, for a lot of people, it really, they responded to the material and they responded to the story, and they were really excited by what we could do with it. And then as we developed it was just like having the flexibility, like adapting a movie into a staged musical is its own thing. You're not just doing a one-to-one. And for anyone who's seen the movie and now seen the musical, they're different.
Yeah.
The story is of course the same, but there's characters are different, and there's new characters, and there's a few characters in the movie that are not in the musical, and it was also a great opportunity to expand upon themes that I had wanted to, and not have to. Obviously, there's practical reality, but you have more freedom in theater than you do on a movie, because with a movie you have the limitations of you have to show everything, right?
Right.
So if you want, there's a certain level at which like can't afford that, or like, the musical numbers in the movie, we only had 4 hours to execute. Most people do music videos, I think, in 2 or 3 days. So you're dealing with just a lot of practicalities, where is in theater you have more freedom, that time, space. You can say something, you're there, you can go back into a memory and it's just a switch of a light. You could say, there's a meteor coming, and they just show a spotlight. It's just there's more freedom. And um, I think that was so exciting because you were not confined because I'm also a producer, and I was thinking this on the movie, like, well, we can't do the whole subway dance number with, 300 people because we have no money to shut down the New York City subway system, and we can afford, 5 extras for the entire movie. Versus, you want it to look like, I don't know what big, like Wicked, but, and then
Right.
you get the sad reality that you have less than, whatever, and you have no money to do any of that, and you have 2 extras and, a piece of wood that you have to make into something. So,
So for those who've joined and maybe haven't seen Saturday Church, the movie
hello,
nor the
those who have
musical,
joined.
tell us, I mean, it's about a young queer Black boy in the Bronx,
Yeah.
but he's a member of the Black church and is not feeling, the kind of reciprocal love, goes on a journey, finds his found family down in the village.
Mhm.
And this is a group of people who many of them are in ballroom or voguing. And it's Saturday church. It's, a youth group basically.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a program that actually existed that happened on Saturday nights at a church.
yeah,
Yeah.
St. Luke's in the Field. Is that right?
It's St. Luke in the Fields, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me, I mean, it's a long time to stay with this story. Tell me how you sustained your love for this story and why it matters.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, because this came out in 2000, we shot it 2016, it premiered at Tribeca 2017, it got released
Right.
2018. Um, so in some ways, it was like novel at that point. At least that's what people thought was this type of filmmaking and authentic casting. And the hope was that we had moved beyond the sort of divisive, hateful rhetoric. But what's insane is it came out in the first Trump administration,
Yeah.
and yet here we are again in the second one. And it's probably more hateful and more because there's been such visibility over the past 4 years, which is incredible, but visibility comes with backlash. And now people are being vilified even more so. So it's like the story has taken on almost even more importance and resonance now, because now people are. I mean, I don't have to tell anyone who's listening. Everyone's reading the news. Everyone's aware of the attacks. Everyone's aware of funding being pulled and the vilification of communities. So it's almost like the story is almost more timely than ever, and
Right.
I think, and it's an even more important reminder of the allyship that needs to happen within the LGBTQ plus community, because I think many times, I think it's less so now, but I do very much remember back in even 2016, which is not that long ago, but it was just like everyone was sort of like siloed off, right?
Yeah.
And I think now there is a lot more camaraderie and allyship, but it's like the LGBTQ plus community is a minority. And if we're
Right.
not having each other's backs in every single way possible, then in many ways we're fucked. And, and I don't care if one letter of the alphabet feels that they're not being targeted as specifically as another letter within that. What is that? An acronym? What do you call that? But
Yeah,
it's
we'll
like
call it
we
an acronym.
all, I'm right. Is that the right
Yeah,
word? It
it
makes
is.
me sound intelligent. We need to be supporting the trans community just as us white cisgender gay people, just as much as, if we're like, oh, well, they're not focused on us, like that is when shit goes
Right.
south. And I think the creation of this musical has been this sort of utopia of it is everyone of every gender, every background, every race all coming together, linking arms. I mean, I think someone made a joke of like, is there anyone on this musical who's straight on the creative and cast? And it honestly, I was like, it took some thinking because
Right.
it's a huge story that goes well beyond me. I'm brought up a lot because yes, the idea originated because of my mother and the church and the priest, but all the collaborators that have been part of this storytelling, whether it's James, whether it's Whitney, whether it's Queen Jean, our fabulous costume designer who's a leader in the trans community and runs trans liberation, whether it's our lighting designer who's gay, and the sound designer, and like everyone, our choreographers and music, and Honey Dijon, and like everyone has come to like sort of unite and be like, we're all in this together. We're all telling this story about love, acceptance, and just like, and I think that's what's also why it's such an incredible experience for the audience too. I mean, I've seen young queer youth have such an emotional response to this musical, and I've seen older white cis straight men come out bawling, like a 78-year-old guy who just couldn't stop crying. And, and I think it's the humanity and the love that is like, which sounds very kumbaya-y, but it's like just like a pure like blast of it that people are like, and it is a very human story of grief, of emotion, of love, of family. Like you don't have to necessarily be fully of this community to understand it, but everyone can understand love, grief, sadness, and you can come out seeing one another as human beings. And I think um that's what I really love about it. It's really crossed so many demographics and
I agree. And I will say that being in the theater, since the pandemic, I questioned a lot of like, why do I still go into dark rooms with hundreds of strangers to watch things? But I love it.
why
And I
is
do,
that what you're doing in the dark room? No, sorry,
well,
that was
but
phrased interestingly.
But you know what I mean? Like
I
to
know what
to
you
have
mean.
a live theater or music experience, it's very different than sitting at home and streaming on
A
Netflix,
thousand
right?
percent.
And there is something about being in the New York Theater Workshop and watching this production that I just felt this feeling of like I feel safe here and I feel happy that this exists. It felt like a form of resistance, and I've been working on a piece in my head and I'm trying to write it about how people need to get off their phones and go to the theater or need to go out and do
Yeah.
something. And I felt like Saturday Church and to name another show that I feel this way about is Prince Faggot,
I
like
love
just
Prince
going out
Faggot.
and having that experience in real life with other people gives you hope, right? Because what you just said.
I agree. And I think, it was almost, it's weird to say because obviously I'm one of the creators of it, but I was surprised myself about how much I needed it because we do live in these like isolated things where you are tricking yourself into thinking that you're having connection or community because you're liking people's photos and people are sending you funny memes and you're having a dialogue. But it's like this like synthetic thing, but there's nothing that can I actually think there's going to be a big push into live performance and live because everything is so synthesized now and everything's so technical and all we do is stare at shit all day long. I'm just as guilty. I don't even want to know how many hours I spend on my phone. And I think people are really missing that communal nature and I think part of the emotional tidal wave people are feeling is like they've almost forgotten that they could feel that way. And so they come out of the theater being like, it's like I haven't felt that way, and I don't even. I forgot I could feel that way, you know.
Right.
And I think also everyone has become so calcified because of this like hatred in which everything and everyone's against everything. It's like and about every fucking subject, and it's just like to thaw out and be like. There's literally a line in the show where, you know, it's like, turn to your neighbor and say, I love you. Like, which sounds hokey if you're listening to this, but like when you're in the moment, you're just like, oh, like, look at that. I do love you. Like, this is great. You know, we are all, you know, and I think that's like a really magical experience that, and so people coming out like, I mean, there's people that at intermission are buying tickets to go see another perform. People have come 2 or 3 times. The thing's been on for like 2 months, you know?
I know,
It's
just one more
crazy.
week left, October
I
24th. It
know,
has to
October
do.
24th. I know. I know.
I mean, part of
Hopefully
it is
there'll be other
also
paths.
the talent on stage is incredible, and the singing just blows you away. I wasn't familiar with it's Bryson Battle, right?
Yeah.
I because I don't watch The Voice, I don't know these things.
He
And
was
his
cast before he was in The Voice too. That
oh,
was
okay,
like, yeah, it was like when he got cast on The Voice, it was like, yay! Oh shit, is gonna fuck with our schedule. It didn't, but you know, so it wasn't like, oh, we saw him on The Voice, and then we thought, you know,
but even, I mean, B. Noel Thomas, like these voices have been
unbelievable.
unbelievable, and
First
so
show in New York, Bryson's first show in New York,
yeah.
Jackson's first show in New York, Caleb, Anania, like these are all. I mean, Anania obviously does like drag shows and has an online performance, but I believe this might be her first time up on the stage as an actress in theater. I'm not 100% sure. No one come at my ass. But for the majority of them, the fact that they are sharing the stage with Joaquina and Jay Harrison Gee, like these Tony winners, and no one's like, oh, those are the Tony winners. And yeah, that's, you know, the first timers. And everyone's like, who the fuck are all these people?
Yeah.
They're just incredible.
And Jay as Black Jesus, I mean, there's a provocative thing happening on stage. Have you guys had any pushback from anyone on that?
No, because I think it's funny because my mother, the priest, not to pull my mother's a priest card, but you know, I actually mentioned it, and it was like if you actually are, you know, read the Bible and Christianity. I mean, God talks about like presenting Himself in many different forms. I mean, it shows up as a burning bush at one point, you know, and I'm sure that you know someone on the extreme side would whatever like love to make an issue out of a non-issue, but that actually is the essence of what God talks about is appearing in many different forms. And I actually had a friend who's very Christian, who I was a little like she loves me and she's a dancer, so she's used to being around, you know, lots of gays, but I wasn't sure if she would react. And she was obsessed. And she was like, I um I this made me actually like you know rethink some things and was not offended in the slightest. And actually another person who was involved with the theater, I think the concept sounds like it's going to be shocking or something. And when she read it the first time, it's like I wasn't sure how I was going to feel because she grew up, I think, very Baptist in the South. And she's like, "You don't have a bigger fan than me." And she's come like 5 times or something. So I think, I mean, he's the most fabulous character like in the show. One of many. There's many fabulous characters, but I think you look at that character and it's this like heroic, purest form of what you would hope Jesus and like a loving God and Christ would be. There's nothing mocking. There's nothing um exploitative or divisive about it. It's pure love and fabulosity. And like, I wish that was my
Mhm.
Jesus. You know what
Well,
I mean?
what's also fascinating to me, and I realized I had my own, I've been into the idea of capitalist theater for too long because, you know, after I saw Strange Loop and Spat Ham, and now that, you know, I'm like, wow, there are
Both
these
great
amazing
shows.
Black-centered stories that are actually really provocative.
Yeah.
And yet they're finding an audience and they're finding a diverse audience as
Yeah.
well. And you're in that line. Um, and yet we keep feeling like it's all going to go away or that we're in end times or something like that. And that's why I'm telling people like, go see Saturday Church, go see this. I mean, it is a form of protest in a way, a joyous protest.
Yeah, I think art is one of the most powerful mediums in which to absorb information. And you never want anything to be heavy-handed, although the message is clear. But I think people really sort of repel against being taught something or like, we're going to teach you a lesson that you're going to come out. It's like, fuck off. But like you show, and I always think about like the birdcage, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of people that fell in love with these two wonderful human characters that you could relate to, and the relationship was funny. But I mean, that had a very wonderful message as well of like, and this was back in the day when gay marriage was very taboo. I mean, I think they don't even they don't even get married. Don't they sign like
Yeah.
what is it? A piece of paper that, I
It's
forget what it's
actually
called.
before Nathan Lane was even officially out.
Officially out, totally. But people that turned into a massive success. And I had this weird flashback when I was at New York Theater Workshop, which is obviously the birthplace of Rent, which, is incredible, of seeing Rent when I was in college with my mother. And there was a family that, you know, had come from out of the city that I don't know how they didn't know what they were getting into with Rent, but I think they probably had just heard about Rent or someone said, "Oh, you gotta see Rent," because obviously Rent was massive, but they didn't like do their research and they just got tickets. And it was like father and a mother and two kids that were like high school age. And they sat next to us, and I remember as Rent started, and then Angel came out, and then all this stuff. I saw the father look at the mother with this like, "What the fuck is this?" And like, we chose the wrong show. And I heard them whispering and kind of a like, "Do we need to leave? This isn't appropriate for the children." Like, da da da. Da. And when intermission happened, I was like, "They're gone. Like, they're out. They're not coming back." They came back. And then at the end of Rent, they were standing, applauding, screaming at the top of their lungs. And that to me, within one show, I was like, wow, they went from petrified and like protect the children to like, this is the most fucking thing we've ever seen. And I thought, wow, I literally just saw that in 2.5 hours.
Right.
So that's when I
And
think
it's
it's
not
amazing.
propaganda and it's
It's
not
not fucking
didactic.
propaganda. If anything,
Mm.
it's a way to say, here's another piece of humanity that you might not have ever been exposed to, and that's okay. And you don't have to be judged, and no one has to call you. I think that's what I love about our show is like, I want our show to be approachable for everybody, and I don't mean that in a kumbaya. Of course, for the community, of course, for the people, but it is also of equal importance that people who might have voted against the rights of people in this community to see, and if they come out and say, you know what? These people are wonderful too. And why was I so? It's always a lack of exposure. And if you can
Right.
expose people to things, then 99% of the time they're going to come out the other end and say, oh, I guess I just didn't know. And that's what it came to. But there's always the fear of the unknown. And so if you show people the unknown and you're like, oh, wow, you're just as human as I am, you grieve the way I grieve, you fall in love the way I fall in love. Oh my God. I don't want to treat you other, and I just want to support you now. How wonderful. And you get to dance
It
in your seats. Come on now.
exactly. Or you can stand up and dance. But
You can stand up, you can clap those fans.
I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, there's very many different types of love that is displayed in the storytelling, um, including romantic love. But I'm really fascinated by the fact that you have such a strong story around found family in both the movie and in the musical, and that's something that I often ask people about chosen family or found family. It apparently is growing in popularity among young people. But tell me a little bit about what you think about found family or chosen family.
I mean, I think it's incredible, and I think it's a necessity. And I think family comes in many forms, and I'm trying to think of a way to describe it that doesn't sound like I'm reading from, the back of a pamphlet or something.
The
But
GLAD information pamphlet, yeah.
but I think it's true. And even if you were blessed with a family that accepted you for you, you will always have your family of friends, and you will always there's a certain aspect of yourself that you can only be with your found family. And if you are, raised in a situation in which your family is not a comfortable place to be, everyone needs family. Everyone needs a support system, and it does not have to be blood. There are people that I am closer to in my life that I'm not blood related to than people that I am blood related to. I mean, not my immediate family.
Right.
I'm obsessed with my immediate family, but and I think that whatever way you need to get through life to survive, to feel good about yourself, to feel loved, to feel appreciated, to feel nurtured and encouraged, then that comes in many forms, and one is not lesser than the other. As long as you're getting those nutrients and ingredients, not that you're a plant, but whatever, you kind of are. I don't know if that's true, but whatever, just go with it. Uh, then how wonderful. There's enough problems in life without having to over dissect everything. If you're like, you know what, I'm jamming with these people better and these people make me feel positive. I mean, even down to like certain friends in your life. You have petty friends that don't wish you well that for some reason you're still friends with. Like, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, get these people out of my life. I don't want
Right.
people that don't have my back. I don't want someone kissing my ass and being sycophantic, but like, you just want to be surrounded with people that really have your best interests at heart and that will call you short and that's also and be honest with you. And that's what family is about and loving you. And I don't know. So in whatever form that comes, everybody should have that.
Yeah, totally. I want to know everybody who is listening or watching, if you have any questions, let us know.
We're
I have a
communal
few.
creatures, we say in the musical. We are communal creatures. It is true.
Exactly. Well, you've always really supported the idea of community, even with your listserv that you started a long time ago, of like saying, like, if you need help, like being able to reach out and connect with people, which is not always the case, right? I mean, everyone's so competitive. They don't want to help others. They feel like if they're helping somebody else, it's like a zero sum game. And so they
Yeah.
don't want to lift anyone up. And you've never really done that. And obviously your networking through organic friendships and things has been really successful.
I genuinely like people of all different persuasions and backgrounds and every sort of thing. As long as you're genuinely yourself, I had somebody in my life that was like, I thought this was such a high compliment. I said, I've never met somebody with such a diverse array of friends from all different walks of life. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it. Like for me, it's just like I love individuals. I love people. It's why I love writing. I love the human experience. I love learning from people. I love being inspired by people. And that's not just one type of person that inspires you. It's why I love living in New York. It's like
Right.
constant stimulus. It's like you go on the subway and it's just like this plethora of incredible people that are doing amazing things, and that I'm fascinated by. There's a curiosity. Yeah,
I actually, yeah, to go back to that, what you started with, I think it is remaining curious about people. And I think that you're right. When you lose that curiosity and empathy, then that's when you're fucked.
I agree. Yeah, that's where you see the most divisive, hateful rhetoric comes from the people that are the least empathetic.
So, I know that you've probably had a lot of young queer people come up to you over the years and tell you how you've inspired them and that sort of thing. And I was curious if you do have any sort of advice for people who are searching or feeling alone or feeling like this is, like they're depressed and don't know what to do right now. I mean, obviously there's a big protest plan tomorrow across the country.
No
The No
King's
King.
Day.
Yeah. So what do you say to people who are like, how do I stay positive or how do I keep creating or how do I just find love?
Yeah, I think I mean obviously I don't have all the answers. Well actually I do. No. Uh it's we I think I'm naturally a bit of an optimist, although which is funny because most people be like, you can be such a bitch, but like I've always tried to find sort of a silver lining or on top of being in this community or doing what I do for a living. There's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of know-it-alls. There's a lot of people that love to say why not instead of why yes. And I don't know if it's a mix of stubbornness or what, but so much of my career was people telling me, no, 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 no. Almost everything I've done, people have told me why not. And everyone loves saying why not. And then they love being your biggest ally once all of a sudden it's successful and they want to get an invite to a premiere or something. But I think that it's like you gotta stay true to your vision. My mother, not to talk about the priest thing again, but always said God speaks through your instincts or you have a vocation or a calling. And I think you've got one life. You got to listen to what you really want to do. And a lot of people always say, "Well, I don't know what I want to do," and blah 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 blah. And which is legit. I'm not trying to minimize it, but my response to that is always, if you don't know what you do want to do, I bet you know what you're most scared of. And if you know what you're most scared of, then that's a good indication of what you want to do the
Right.
most. Because if somebody told me you're never going to be an astronaut, I'd be like, oh well, I don't give a fucking shit. Like, but
You're
if
like, you're
somebody
right.
said yeah, but there are things I know I was, and I'm proud of myself for moving towards the things that I was scared of. But I also knew if I didn't try them, I would regret it. And to not try something and live with that regret, that to me was worse than trying and failing. And I played gay dodgeball at one point. Maybe you know my work from there. Many, many moons ago. And I remember meeting somebody, it was, wow, 2008, because it was that whole financial crisis. And they had just been laid off from their job and they were in their late 40s. And, we heard it was laid off. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And he said, no, now I'm going to finally do what I've always wanted to do. And I remember thinking, you're in your late 40s now? And I was like 23 and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then I went back to waiting tables. And that was sort of the thing that I was like, I don't want to be that person. Maybe
Right.
I'll fail. Maybe I'll be waiting tables for the rest of my life, but at least I'll say I gave it a shot.
Right.
And so you got to
I
believe in
often tell people
yourself.
the second best answer is no, but you can't get to a yes if you don't even try. So, um,
You will always, there's so many people that are like, oh, well, I don't know. What if they say no? I'm like, well, I guarantee you by not reaching out, the answer is no. So you might as well try. And I also have a rule that whenever I do get a no, I immediately send another email out. It can be totally random. It's not always the most well thought out or planned, but I will send out another email or like another lifeline. And it's not always like, oh, I'll make it up. This person said no about this script. So now I'm sending it to this person who developed screenplays. Because there's a point where sometimes you're like, eh? But sometimes you reach out to somebody else and they have a friend whose cousin does something, So I just always throw out like another lifeline so that I'm not just sitting with well, they said no. And the more I do this and the more people I've met through doing this and people who've had miraculous and wonderful careers. And I just did this whole 5-part documentary on Scorsese, and it's like clearly like one of the most famous filmmakers in the world. But what's fascinating about the doc, which is playing on Apple TV right now, a little plug, but his for me, it was his failures and how he kept on going and not like, I'm like, I don't care. Like, if someone's successful, like, great, but I'm not like, I just love watching people like, that's unrelatable.
yeah.
Like if their stories and then they won this and then they won that and then they also won this. I'm more like, oh my God, they had this downfall. This person had a drug overdose and managed to pull themselves back up. Like that is inspiring. Overcoming hardship is inspiring to me.
I've been listening to the new James Baldwin biography, which should be a movie as well. But it's fascinating because, in retrospect, everyone's always like, of course this person got famous or of course this person got published. But when you actually get into these stories, you actually realize like, no, this was not inevitable. And there was
It's
a
not
lot of
it's the tenacity.
tenacity and perseverance and persistence and
It
relentlessness
is
and luck.
yeah, but it's underplayed. But luck is also tenacity, right? Like I
Yeah.
was saying, people could say, "Oh, well, see ya." Like, so you're telling me that I should just write something and hopefully a global phenomenon pop star will see it and then tweet at me? Like, yes, if you phrase it like that, it sounds insane. But I was not creating this piece thinking, well, and then that'll happen. It was like, but the fact that I was able to create the piece that created the opportunity, that created it becoming a New
Right.
York Times created piece, which allowed her to see it. If I had listened to those assholes in the beginning that told me not to do this, I guarantee you, Sia was not going to text me out of the blue saying, "Hey, you got a musical idea?" You know,
Not going to
so
happen.
you have to create the opportunity. And if you do it enough, not everything that I've done has, it's annoying when you hear those stories of like, oh, and this was a success and this was like, this person just fucking lucked out. No, like, there are a lot of things. It was building. I did a store in a store, a show in a storefront, hawking mac and cheese and taking out the trash. That turned into a web series that me and my friends made for $500 for the first season, and then put the second season on YouTube, where we each chipped in $500. So the second season was $2,000, a huge jump, which got me nominated for 2 Writers Guild Awards, which then, when I was trying to push my first screenplay, at least I could go out saying, well, I've, been nominated for 2 Writers Guild Awards. So people paid a little bit more attention. But I remember before I even did that web series, I was at some like stupid fucking party where I was telling someone I was going to make a web series. And their first response, I don't even know who this person is, said, ugh, another web series. And that was totally deflating. And then made me go, and like my first thought was, he's right. I shouldn't, why am I doing this? This is a waste of time. Well, if I listened, it wouldn't have turned into web series. It wouldn't have got me WGA. I wouldn't have written a script. Sia wouldn't have seen the script. It wouldn't have turned into a show. Like, now in hindsight, I can look at that chain of events,
Right.
but
Hey,
so,
I mean, I can agree. That's why I started this Substack, and everyone was like, "Oh, another Substack." But I was like, I want to do this thing,
people love
and
saying shit. They really fucking love being experts, and they'll be the first to kiss your ass and try to get on your Substack when it's a
right.
massive hit.
Also, yeah, the know-it-all nobodies. That's what I call them. That they're the worst.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, and good. Yeah, the worst. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm so
Well,
over people pissing on people's dreams and I think I get triggered clearly because it is so hard to do what we want to do. It's so hard to believe in yourself. It's so hard to verbalize it. Put your neck out there, not be embarrassed by it. I mean, the first time when I was performing the storefront, I didn't even tell my friends because I was embarrassed by it. I thought, oh, this is stupid. And if it's a total bomb, then at least no one knows it happened. It's like a silent bomb. If a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it fall? Um, you know, but so it takes a lot of courage to do it. And then, so to then people with their fucking know-it-all, anytime someone tells me, you want to start a bakery, start a bakery. Just, you have one fucking life, do it.
exactly. Well, I want to thank you, as everyone now knows. Saturday Church is on at New York Theater Workshop in New York through October 24th. And now Mr. Scorsese is streaming on Apple TV. No more Apple TV Plus, just Apple
No, they've
TV.
put the fuss. I know. I'm like, no, we don't say that anymore.
And but I also just want to thank you because you said yes to doing this, and that is another example of your generosity of saying yes. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, please. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored. It's always fun to catch up and talk.
It is. And break a leg and good luck with everything in the last week of production, and we'll see what happens next.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. Thank you, everybody who watched, listened.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. How do I turn this?